Welcome back to the show. We got a great one lined up. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. You can follow us on X, YouTube, and DigPerspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $3.8 trillion market cap for crypto. The market's up 0.8%, but we're still under that $4 trillion plus mark we were at just not too long ago. Bitcoin, 114,300 plus, Ethereum, 3,500 plus, XRP is 298. We're up 4% on the 24. We're still off 8.1 on the 7-day. The range of price here ranging between $2.88 and $3.06. Now, I want to shout out anybody who picked it up at $2.88. Oh boy, that is a nice little spot right there. Now, I called it at, I think it was $2.96 or $2.97 over the weekend. Listen, I hope everybody got that dip a little bit. I don't know how many more of these we get, but we have so many incredible things in front of us. Let's start right here. One is, listen to the optimism of President Trump when he talks about the U.S. economy will boom in the next 5 or 6 months from now. Take a listen here.
Wait till you see the boom that this country goes through in 5 or 6 months from now with all of the things that are happening. Car plants are getting ready to start built. They're going to be built by record numbers. The AI stuff is crazy, what's going on there. Billions and billions, trillions of dollars is being, and it's all going to start very shortly now. It's amazing. We've taken in almost $17 trillion of investments in this country, and wait till you see what happens. We're going to have a successful country like I think we've never had before.
And you know what? I think he's right. And I'd like to add to that, it's cryptocurrency in the next 6 months window that is going to see so much progress as well. Look, we're getting the rules to the road. We're getting the legislation to become law. We've already got the Genius Act. Now we're waiting for the Clarities Act. Then we're waiting for the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act. And I'm sure there'll be a few others to unlock this market and this new asset class fully. You know, that's where this is going. And we're going to have that Clarities Act by October, which is in this 5 to 6 month window for this boom that President Trump is talking about, which is why I'm reminding you right now, what are you doing when it comes to your IRA? What are you doing when it comes to your 401k? Let me ask it another way. What are you going to tell your grandchildren you were doing with your 401k and your investments during the greatest financial paradigm shift in the history of mankind? What are you going to tell your grandkids you were doing? Oh, kids, Pop didn't move his money, right? I sat on the sideline and wanted to miss it. Now that's not the fireside story you want to share with the kids, right? You want to share with them the kind of story that lets them understand the insight that you have, the kind of mind you had that you could pass to them and their children and their children's children, because thinking this way is the kind of things you want to get built into your family as far as a habit goes, right? And telling a story about how someday you'll be a grandfather, if you're not already are, you could say, yeah, Pop moved his entire 401k over to iTrust, and I got the self-directed, empowered back office that allowed me to choose which assets I believe were going to experience the biggest gains based on that legislation becoming law, and then the utility that's going to be brought to this asset space that has yet to be witnessed before in history. Now, do you want to be that grandpa or grandma, or you want to be the one on the sideline? All you got to do is go to iTrustCapital.com/XRP Army. You can move your 401k over just as quick as doing an email. That's what we're talking about here. And then instantly you've made a power move to set your family up, not only yourself, but you and your family up for a win of generations to come. I really do believe this, because what we're witnessing here isn't just as special as following one company that you think is going to do well. This is an entire asset class that is being birthed inside the financial system. Don't sleep on it. Go to iTrustCapital.com/XRP Army and get your IRA over into this account and start winning like you never have ever before, and get the bragging rights to go with it. Right here, speaking of bragging rights, XRP Rich List update reveals now you need 2,433 XRP to become the top 10% holder, and 50,108 XRP for a top 1% holder. Well, I tell you right now, I love this, that you can kind of look at this and see where you are. You know, throughout my years of accumulation and building my portfolio, whether it's XRP or other assets, I would always have like a mental game that I would do where, like, if I got to, you know, a certain number, just an arbitrary example, you know, like if you get to 3,000, then you want to be at 5,000, right? If you get to 5,000, you want to be at 8 and then 10,000, right? I would set little watermarks for myself along the way throughout the years to keep me excited about the short-term goal, and then ultimately get that larger picture in your mind of where you want to be. How big does my bag need to be for me to have the kind of life I want to have, where my money is working for me and I am no longer working for the money? Reverse engineer your happiness. Reverse engineer your new chapter of life, your retired life, right? Where you retire from the rat race and you get into doing other more meaningful things with your family and community. That's really where my head is, right? And I hope for you guys that you've had the ability and the time to sit down and reverse engineer, what do I want my life to be like, and how do I get my money to work for me, and how do I live every year? Do I live like a baller? Do I just need enough money to pay off a house and a car? Do I like my job and I don't want to leave my job? You know, all these things are individual questions we should all be asking ourselves, so we can come up with the plan to say, yeah, I need X amount of dollars to live the kind of life I want to live for the rest of my life. And life expectancy, I should live another 40 or 50 years or whatever it is for your case, and get it figured out. That's the best way to put the plan together for you and your family and get started. Now, for all the Bitcoin maxis out here, shout out to Michael Branch, give this guy a follow. You talk about an OG in this space. For all the Bitcoin maxis who think XRP is centralized, check this out. There's a great little site called XRPCentralized.com, and I love this. And shout out to whoever did this. It might be the people from XRP Ledger. I don't know, but I love that it's done. Every standard FUD question has been answered here. So if you need to deal with somebody who has XRP derangement syndrome, like Robert Breedlove and others, then what you need to do is come down to here and send them this, and then also send them a hockey helmet with a chin strap, right? They don't have to join the team. And the reason I pick on Robert Breedlove is because Robert Breedlove is picking on us. He says XRP is an acronym that stands for extremely retarded person. Robert Breedlove, I have an autistic grandson, and I am not going to go woke culture on you, but I will tell you what a disgusting piece of shit you are to use that term to talk about other people, whether they're in the XRP community or not. But with that being said, I'm not going to dip to your level. I'll say, Robert, highly inappropriate comments about XRP holders here. Now, I could match your energy and make you choke on your tongue, but I'll abstain for now. As the founder of the world's largest XRP conference, I'd rather like to invite you to XRP Las Vegas 2026 on my dime. I'll even put you on stage at the behest of what it would do to all the other XRP holders, because I don't want their IQ going down to where yours is. But nonetheless, I think you would be surprised to find out about the level of utility that's about to come into play for XRP and the XRP ledger, and what's the harm in learning together and turning it into profits. I'm a profits maxi. I hold Bitcoin, XRP, and a ton of others. You know, let's leave the attacks out. You know, we don't want to get too hung up with that, Robert. I mean, you can continue to do that if you want to, but it's going to be at your behest. I tell you that, because you're not going to like the things I could share with you, fella. It'll keep you up at night. And I'm not paying for any of the counseling if you continue. Bitwise founder shows respect to Brad Garlinghouse. Shout out to Hunter Horsley here, who I do realize is a big Bitcoin maxi, and he still shows props to Brad Garlinghouse. This is how it's done.
You took my role, the role of interviewer, and you interviewed Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple. Why did you do that? Because I was excited because I think that there's a ton of great things to say about Brad. They've really, I mean, there's a but the recent one is that they really took on the mantle of pushing back against the SEC's egregious enforcement, which has impacted Uniswap, it's impacted Consensus, it's impacted Coinbase, and not everyone can fight back. And they were the first to fight back, and they just recently prevailed. And maybe you don't like XRP the token, or maybe you don't like RLUSD the stablecoin, or maybe you love those things. But in any case, you can appreciate the effort and role. So I was really excited, both because I think very highly of Brad, but also to try to sort of model how people should behave in the space, which is be rooting for the success of the space. Yeah.
There you go. And you know what? And that's how it's done. Why are we still having people fight inside the community, Robert? Right? We should all be uniting here, especially Bitcoin maxis who have made all their money off of speculation. You better start finding some use cases instead of name calling. Meanwhile, what's going on with this SEC case, ladies and gentlemen? Mark Fagel is here again. And you know what? Shout out to Mark Fagel, who I have really been on the opposite side of his own legal opinions on the matter of this case throughout the entire 4 or 5 years here. But nonetheless, Mark Fagel has excellent music taste. Listen, Mark, I'm just going to give it to you. You really do. I couldn't disagree with you more about how you feel about Ripple and XRP, but boy, he really does have great musical taste. I got to tell you, I got to give it to him. But nonetheless, he does give us what we need here. And what we need here from Mark is exactly this. When Crypto Charts, Targets, and Updates asked a question here, when did Ripple drop their countersuit against the SEC? Why is Paul Atkins dragging his feet to dismiss this case in its entirety? Seems like something clever is afoot, perhaps Trump America. And then just wondering and speculating, where is this all going? Mark Fagel comes in and clears it up and says Ripple has not yet dropped its cross appeal. Remember, there's a case report from both sides that is due by August 15th. There is a standard process the SEC must follow to approve this, which can take several months. No foot dragging, just legal requirements. It will happen soon, he says. Judge Torres no longer has anything to do with the case. To go a little further, someone says, I thought the case was dropped like 4 times now already. He said, no. He said there have been various proceedings along the way, but as of now, neither party has actually dismissed its appeal. So then he goes on to say, Garlinghouse has said they've dropped their appeal. He says, no, they said they are dropping their appeal. They have not done so. The court docket is public. There's some great back and forth in here. And he says here in respect to Torres, he said her order against Ripple goes into effect once the appeals are concluded and dismissed. She doesn't have to do anything further unless Ripple fails to comply, which I don't believe they would fail to comply. He says here, I don't think the court will actually oversee anything. It's not like courts have the resources to follow up on their orders. If Ripple failed to comply, refuses to turn over the $125 million to Treasury, it would be up to the opposing party to inform the court. So there you have the latest from that. You know, I have to say, like, in regards to all of this, remember, this is what sticks out to me. When we saw Stuart Alderati came out and say after the ruling, he said the SEC versus Ripple ruling solved this issue, in my opinion, and it was to a comment I made earlier at that time, back in July. But this is why Stuart Alderati used the term, I believe, historic institutional sales. Remember, the judgment in the case and the ruling against Ripple was in reference to all sales up until 2018. So at my house, whatever comes after that must have an agreement already worked out with the SEC and the US government. And in worst case scenario, Ripple can continue to sell to all exchanges, and the exchanges could sell OTC to institutions. Either way, US legislation becoming law is the catalyst to set this market free. I really do believe that. I think that's exactly where we are. We will see very, very soon. October, we're supposed to have the Clarities Act passed. I would imagine somewhere in that window, before, during, or after, we should see the market respond to the Clarities Act being signed into law, not just being passed. So then we have this, which is further good news. CFTC announces a crypto sprint. And what's important about this is that this is Commissioner Pham and everybody else at the CFTC will kick off a crypto sprint to start implementation of the recommendations from the President Working Group Digital Asset Markets Report. So everything is moving forward. And remember, just because something is passed, signed into law, doesn't mean that there is an immediate effect, that that's it, it's on, now everyone's in here and we're all doing it. It's like, there still has to be enormous amount of layers of regulations that are unwound and rescinded and all of the rest of it. Then you have to have a grace period for this legislation that has now been passed and eventually signed into law, where a grace period before it actually takes effect, giving all the market participants the opportunity to adjust to this new legislation becoming law. So this is where it starts. Everything's moving forward. And I know it's not fast enough for everyone, but I'll say this. Rest assured that the Fed and the U.S. Treasury will not be issuing a digital asset currency. And the private sector innovation over government is the way they're going here. White House's new 166-page digital asset report delivers a clear message. Private sector innovation over government-issued digital currency. That is one of the resounding points to come out of this, which means that is huge for our freedom and protecting our right to privacy when it comes to our money, whether it's digital or paper. I tell you that. That's a big deal at my house too. Again, we are moving from a Keynesian economic model that we're currently in to an Austrian economic model. Essentially, instead of having trust the government to fix the market failures or cause them, then fix them by printing rate hikes and then cuts, right, and endless debt creation. The Austrian model is more about self-regulation of the markets, government intervention is a distortion, and putting up assets for credit instead of creating credit out of thin air. This is where we're going to. And how do we know that? We know that because stable coins require physical one-to-one backing. That is the first step of getting away from the Keynesian economic model of just printing paper and getting to a asset-backed model, a multipolar asset-backed system, which means the physical legacy system that we've known forever up until today will become the qualified custodians, essentially, that hold the physical reserves so we can all play and live in the digital world. That's where we're going. And the only way to get there is to adopt the Austrian economic model, because you got to have assets to put up to back these things in the digital world. We're not accepting the kind of credit in the digital world unless you can be liquidated. That's where we're going, whether you like it or not. 303 has to hold on a 3-day time frame, and 312 should be next. If it does, and 330 should be after that, after hold support to look for a new all-time high. So let's just go to 330. We hold and close above that for a few days, and then we can start talking about some real new price levels. You know, $4.89 or $48.90. We talked about it over the weekend. We talked about it yesterday. Or could we see an average and hit $27? Or maybe you just have a price point of $26 or $27 where you take profit because you don't want to wait for the $48.90. I don't know. Or if any of it happens at all. I'm here for 4 and 5 digit XRP, but I do have a plan to take profits in the meantime. But I love the idea, the opportunity for these numbers to hit on an XRP chart are pretty damn exciting. And understanding everything that is still yet to unfold for us, I couldn't be more excited about where we are. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.